The doorbell pierced the silence of my home, where I just kissed my son goodnight. A woman stood there, smug in her silk dress, hand on her swollen belly. "Your husband's child," she hissed, "in the Denver condo we share? Bought with your Cuban savings." My blood turned to fire. Every sleepless night nursing his PTSD, every penny saved for our boy, stolen for her. My heart shattered, a scream trapped in my throat. She mocked my sacrifice, my loyalty. I'm Sarah Mitchell. I'm 36 years old. And this betrayal will not break me. My home in Colorado Springs was my fortress, a modest ranch-style house 3 miles from Fort Carson, where the American flag snapped in the mountain breeze. I'd spent years making it ours, framed photos of James in his Marine uniform, Noah's crayon drawings pinned to the fridge, and a worn coffee table scarred from late-night talks about our future. I was Sarah Mitchell, 36, a part-time librarian who poured every ounce of love into my 6-year-old son, Noah, and my husband, James, a Cuban battling ghosts of war. Noah idolized his dad, clutching a toy tank while dreaming of heroics. But James had changed. His consulting trips to Denver, 70 miles away, stretched longer, his eyes distant, his laughter rare. Last week, I'd caught a bank alert, $10,000 drained from our VA savings, the fund we'd built for Noah's college. "Just a glitch," James had said, kissing my forehead before vanishing to another meeting. But the lies piled up, late-night texts from Rachel, a name he brushed off as a client. I'd ignored the knots in my stomach, clinging to the man who'd survived IEDs and promised me forever. Tonight, Rachel's words, pregnant, condo, my money, burned like shrapnel. As I stood frozen in the doorway, Noah's sleepy voice called, "Mommy, is Daddy home?" My heart clenched. I forced a smile, hiding the storm inside. "Not yet, buddy," I whispered, but the truth was clawing its way out. Rachel Harper stood in my doorway, her smug smile a blade twisting in my chest. Her words, pregnant, condo, my money, echoed like a grenade's blast, but I hadn't yet seen the shrapnel. I gripped the doorframe, my knuckles white, and forced my voice to steady. "You need to explain. Now." Rachel's eyes glinted, cold as the Colorado winter. She pulled out her phone, swiping with manicured nails to a photo that stopped my breath. James, my James, laughing with her at a candlelit table in Las Vegas, his arm around her waist. My stomach churned. I'd been home that weekend, braiding Noah's hair for his school play, while James claimed a conference 500 miles away. "There's more," Rachel said, her voice dripping venom. She flicked to a bank statement, our VA savings, the $200,000 we'd scraped together for Noah's future, funneled into a Denver condo titled in her name. My vision blurred. That money wasn't just numbers, it was years of skipped vacations, extra shifts at the library, and James's disability checks from wounds earned in Fallujah. "He said you were drifting apart," Rachel continued, "that he'd leave you by spring." Her words landed like punches, each one heavier than the last. I wanted to scream, to shove her out, but my feet were lead. Another swipe revealed texts, James promising her a new life, a ring, a family. "He loves me," she said, almost daring me to break. I stumbled back, the scent of Noah's birthday cake still lingering in the kitchen, now sour with betrayal. "Get out," I whispered, my throat raw. But Rachel wasn't done. She tossed a folded paper onto my coffee table, a real estate deed for a $1.5 million condo, paid in full from our joint account. My hands shook as I unfolded it, seeing James's signature scrawled next to hers. I pictured him signing it, maybe in some sleek Denver office, while I was tucking Noah into bed, reading him stories about brave Marines like his dad. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was a theft of our sacrifices, our Cuban honor, our dreams for Noah. "Why are you here?" I demanded, my voice cracking like ice. Rachel's smirk faded, her eyes narrowing. "Because James lied to me too. He said I was his future, but last week, I found a receipt, $5,000 for a necklace, addressed to someone named Jessica Lane." Her voice wavered, betraying a crack in her armor. I'm not the only one he's playing. My mind reeled. Jessica Lange? Another woman? The room spun, and I sank onto the couch, clutching James's purple heart, its cold metal grounding me. Every moment I'd spent nursing him through nightmares, every promise he'd made under the Colorado stars, felt like ash. I forced myself to look at Rachel, her pregnancy a living wound between us. If he's lying to you, why show me this? I asked, my words sharp. She crossed her arms, her face hardening. Because I'm not some side piece to be tossed aside. And you deserve to know the man you're married to. She turned to leave, her heels clicking on the hardwood, but paused at the door. Check his laptop. He's not as careful as he thinks. The door slammed, leaving me in silence, save for Noah's soft snores upstairs. I sat frozen, the deed crumpled in my fist. My eyes fell on our wedding photo, James's smile now a stranger's. I'd trusted him with my heart, our son, our future. But Rachel's evidence was undeniable, photos, texts, money, lies. My anger surged, a wildfire consuming the grief. I wasn't just a wife betrayed, I was a Cuban spouse, forged in loyalty and sacrifice, and I wouldn't crumble. I grabbed my phone, dialing Eleanor Brooks, the only person who'd understand this war. Eleanor, it's Sarah. James is destroying us. I need you. Her voice, steady as ever, answered, I'm on my way. The fight was just beginning. The silence after Rachel Harper's departure was deafening, broken only by Noah's soft snores drifting from upstairs. My hand still clutched the crumpled condo deed, James's betrayal etched in every line of his signature. But I wasn't the woman who'd crumble. I was Sarah Mitchell, forged in the fire of a Cuban's life, and I'd fight like hell to protect my son. Eleanor Brooks arrived within the hour, her silver hair pulled tight, her eyes sharp like the JAG officer she'd once been. We sat at my kitchen table, the glow of James's laptop casting shadows across the $200,000 hole in our VA savings. We need proof, Eleanor said, her voice steady as granite. If James is siphoning funds, he's not just a cheater, he's a criminal. I nodded, my jaw tight, and handed her the deed Rachel had left. Eleanor's brow furrowed as she scanned it. This condo's in Denver, 70 miles north. Title to Rachel Harper, paid from your joint account. But there's more here. She opened James's laptop, using a password I'd seen him type 100 times, Noah's birthday. My heart twisted, but I pushed the pain aside. Eleanor's fingers flew across the keys, pulling up a hidden folder labeled Valor Security Solutions. My breath caught. James had mentioned it once, a consulting side hustle to secure our future. But the files told a different story, bank transfers, $50,000 at a time, funneled to a shell company with no office, no staff, just a P.O. box in Nevada. Sarah, this is fraud, Eleanor said, her voice low. He's laundering your VA money through this fake company. I stared at the screen, rage simmering beneath my grief. That money was our lifeline, James's disability checks, my overtime hours, every sacrifice for Noah's college fund. I scrolled further, my hands trembling, and found an email chain with a lawyer in Denver. Prepare divorce papers, James had written. I want the house and Noah's custody by June. My blood ran cold. He wasn't just leaving me, he was planning to take my son, the heart of our home, and erase me from our life. I slammed the laptop shut, my voice shaking with fury. He thinks he can steal my child and walk away? Not on my watch. Eleanor placed a hand on mine, her grip firm. We'll bury him with evidence, but we need more. Rachel mentioned a Jessica Lange. Let's find her. I hesitated, then dialed Rachel's number, my pulse racing. She answered on the second ring, her voice brittle. What do you want, Sarah? I swallowed my anger, forcing calm. You said James is playing us both. Who's Jessica Lange? A long pause followed, then Rachel's tone shifted, raw with hurt. I found her name on a hotel receipt in his car, $2,000 for a suite in Aspen. He's been seeing her for months, promising her the same future he sold me. My stomach lurched. Another woman, another lie, layered on the wreckage of our lives. Rachel, I said, my voice steel, if you're telling the truth, help me stop him. For both of us. She laughed, bitter and broken. You think I want him to win? Meet me tomorrow at my condo. I'll show you everything. I hung up, my mind racing. Rachel Harper, the woman I'd despised an hour ago, was now my ally in this war. Eleanor nodded, her eyes gleaming with resolve. We'll need forensic accounting to trace the funds. I know someone, Agent Daniel Torres, FBI. He's got a brother who served, understands Cuban stakes. By dawn, I'd copied every file from James's laptop onto a flash drive, my fingers numb but my purpose clear. I glanced at Noah's toy tank on the counter, a reminder of the hero James once was, or pretended to be. Upstairs, I checked on my son, his small chest rising with each breath. I'll protect you, I whispered, brushing his hair. The Cuban wife in me woke fully, ready to wage battle. Rachel's condo, Eleanor's expertise, and Torres's authority were my weapons. James had underestimated me, but I'd show him what a mother's fury could do. The dawn light barely pierced the blinds as I slipped the flash drive into my purse, its weight a promise of justice. My meeting with Rachel Harper was set for noon at her Denver condo, 70 miles away, but first, I needed answers from James Mitchell himself. He'd come home late last night, his boots heavy on the hardwood, claiming another client dinner. His lies were a noose tightening around my heart, but I was done playing the naive Cuban wife. I waited until Noah was at school, his toy tank tucked under his pillow, before confronting the man who'd vowed to honor me. The kitchen clock ticked past 8 a.m., each second fueling my resolve. James stood at the counter, sipping coffee, his marine posture still sharp despite the shadows under his eyes. I slid the condo deed across the table, its edges worn from my sleepless grip. Explain this, I said, my voice low but laced with steel. His eyes flicked to the paper, then back to me, calm as a predator. Sarah, what's this about? He asked, his tone smooth, practiced. My blood boiled. Don't play dumb, James. A $1.5 million condo in Denver, paid with our VA savings. Rachel Harper's name is on it. She's pregnant, says it's yours. The words burned my throat, each one a betrayal of the life we'd built. He set his mug down, slow and deliberate, his face a mask of wounded innocence. Rachel's a liar, he said, stepping closer. She's obsessed, trying to extort me. You know I'd never hurt you. His hand reached for mine, but I jerked away, my heart pounding. Then explain the $200,000 gone from our account, I snapped, pulling out a printed bank statement from Eleanor's findings. Or the emails about divorce, planning to take Noah. My voice cracked at Noah's name, the thought of losing my son a knife in my gut. James's facade slipped, his eyes narrowing. You've been snooping, he hissed, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. You think you can threaten me? I fought for this country, Sarah. I deserve respect. His words stung, twisting his Cuban sacrifice into a weapon. I stood my ground, my hands clenched. Respect? You stole from us, James. From Noah's future. He laughed, cold and sharp, leaning in until his breath grazed my cheek. Keep pushing, and I'll make sure you lose him. I've got lawyers, money, and friends in high places. You're nothing without me. My knees buckled, but I caught myself on the table, fury and fear warring inside. You don't scare me, I lied, my voice trembling. He smirked, grabbing his keys. Stay out of my business, Sarah, or Noah's mine. The door slammed, leaving me gasping in the empty kitchen. My eyes fell on James's purple heart, framed above the sink, now a mockery of his honor. I sank to the floor, the bank statement crumpled in my fist, tears burning my cheeks. He'd played me for a fool, and worse, he'd threatened my son, the one pure thing in my life. But I wasn't broken. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers shaking as I activated the voice recorder I'd hidden in my pocket. James's threat, Noah's mine, was captured, a weapon for Eleanor and Agent Daniel Torres. I wiped my tears, my Cuban wife's resolve hardening like steel. James thought he'd won, but this was my Alamo. I grabbed my keys and headed for Denver to meet Rachel. Her condo held the rest of James's secrets, and I'd tear them open, no matter the cost. Noah deserved a mother who fought, and I'd battle to my last breath. The 70-mile drive to Rachel Harper's Denver condo felt like a march to war, each mile marker a reminder of James Mitchell's betrayal. My hands gripped the steering wheel, the flash drive of evidence burning a hole in my purse alongside the recording of James's chilling threat to take Noah. I was Sarah Mitchell, a Cuban wife who'd weathered deployments and PTSD nightmares, but nothing prepared me for this abyss. Rachel's condo loomed in the Denver skyline, a glass tower mocking the $1.5 million stolen from our VA savings. I parked, my heart pounding, and stepped into the lobby, where Rachel waited, her face pale, her designer coat replaced by a loose sweater that hid her pregnancy. Inside her sleek condo, the air was thick with tension. Marble counters gleamed under city lights, but Rachel's eyes were red, her voice raw. "You want the truth?" she asked, tossing a stack of papers onto the coffee table. My breath caught as I scanned them, a passport application for Noah, listing a Vancouver address, and a $3,000 wire transfer to a Canadian school, dated last week. James was planning to flee with my son, to rip him from our Colorado Springs home, our flag-draped porch, our life. My knees buckled, and I sank into a chair, clutching Noah's toy tank keychain, its plastic edges digging into my palm. "He's taking my son," I whispered, my voice breaking. "My Noah." Rachel's jaw tightened, but her eyes glistened with tears. "There's worse," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She pulled up an email on her phone, sent from James 2 days ago. "Terminated, Rachel," it read. "You're not ready for a kid." My stomach churned as she confessed, her words halting. "He pressured me to end the pregnancy. Said it was a mistake, that he'd leave me if I didn't. I went to the clinic yesterday." Her hands shook, cradling her now empty belly. "I lost my baby because of him." Her voice cracked, a sob escaping, and for a moment, we were no longer enemies, but two women shattered by the same man. My vision blurred, tears streaming down my face. Noah, my 6-year-old light, was slipping away to Canada with a stranger named Jessica Lane. Rachel's loss mirrored my own, a future stolen, a trust obliterated. I saw James's purple heart in my mind, once a symbol of sacrifice, now a lie. How could he do this? I choked out, my voice raw with anguish. Rachel wiped her eyes, her grief hardening into resolve. "He's a monster, Sarah." I found more, plane tickets to Vancouver, booked for next week, for him, Noah, and Jessica. They're leaving Friday. My heart stopped. Friday was 3 days away. 3 days to save my son. I stood, my legs trembling, but my Cuban wife's spirit roared to life. "We stop him," I said, my voice ablade. Rachel nodded, her eyes fierce. "I'm in. He doesn't get to ruin us both." I grabbed the papers, my fingers brushing the passport application, Noah's innocent face staring back. Back in Colorado Springs, I met Eleanor Brooks at her office, a cramped space lined with military plaques. She reviewed the evidence, her face grim. "This is kidnapping, Sarah. We need Agent Daniel Torres now." I nodded, my tears drying into fury. "James thinks he's untouchable," I said, my voice steady. "But he's about to meet the mother he underestimated." Eleanor dialed Torres, her voice urgent. "Daniel, it's Eleanor. We've got a Cuban running a fraud scheme and planning to abduct his son." As she spoke, I stared out the window at the Pikes Peak skyline, its jagged peaks mirroring my resolve. James had broken my heart, stolen our savings, and threatened my son. But I was forged in the crucible of a Marine's life, and I'd fight with every ounce of strength. Noah's toy tank keychain burned in my hand. This wasn't just my war, it was for every woman James had crushed. The Colorado Springs Veterans Gala glittered under chandeliers, a sea of dress blues and American flags honoring Fort Carson's heroes. I stood in the shadows, my black dress clinging to my trembling frame, the flash drive of James's crimes tucked in my clutch. 3 days had passed since Rachel Harper's gut-wrenching confession about her lost pregnancy and James's plan to flee to Canada with Noah and Jessica Lane. Agent Daniel Torres, a steely-eyed FBI veteran with a Cuban brother, had worked with Eleanor Brooks to orchestrate tonight's trap. Rachel sat at a corner table, her phone's recording app ready, her face a mask of quiet fury. James Mitchell, my husband, stood at the podium, his Marine uniform gleaming as he pitched Valor Security Solutions to a crowd of decorated veterans and investors. His voice dripped with charm, promising wealth through a $10 million lakeside development. My stomach twisted, every word a lie built on our stolen $1.5 million VA savings. I glanced at Torres, posing as an investor at the bar, his hand near a concealed radio. Eleanor's nod from across the room signaled the plan was in motion. My heart pounded, Noah's toy tank keychain heavy in my pocket, grounding me. James had threatened to take my son, betrayed our Cuban vows, and crushed Rachel's future. Tonight, he'd face justice. I stepped forward, my heels clicking on the polished floor, each step a battle cry. The crowd hushed as I reached the podium, my voice cutting through the silence like a blade. James Mitchell, my husband, stole our VA savings to fund his mistress's condo and a fake company. Gasps rippled through the room. James froze, his smile faltering, his eyes darting to me. "Sarah, what are you doing?" he hissed, his voice low but venomous. I held up my phone, the screen glowing with a bank transfer, $200,000 from our account to Valor Security. "You drained our son's future," I said, my voice steady, ringing with Cuban resolve. "You planned to kidnap Noah, flee to Canada with Jessica Lane, and leave us with nothing." The crowd murmured, veterans' faces hardening with disgust. Rachel stood, her voice sharp. "You lied to me too, James. Promised me a family, then forced me to lose my child." Her words cracked, raw with pain, silencing the room. James's face drained of color, his Marine posture crumbling. "This is a misunderstanding," he stammered, but I wasn't done. I turned to the crowd, my voice rising. "Valor Security is a sham. No projects, no office, just a P.O. box to launder our money. He betrayed every veteran here." I nodded to Torres, who signaled his team. The ballroom doors burst open, and 3 FBI agents in plain clothes stormed in, their badges flashing. "James Mitchell," Torres called, his voice booming, "you're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping." The crowd erupted, phones raised, capturing James's fall. He lunged for the exit, but an agent tackled him, pinning him to the floor. His uniform's metals clinked, a mockery of his honor. Rachel's eyes met mine, a shared fire of vengeance and relief. "You're done, James," I said, my voice cold as Pikes Peak snow. He glared up, cuffed and helpless, his charm shattered. "You'll regret this, Sarah," he spat, but I turned away, my heart steady. The veterans' boos echoed, their respect for him replaced by scorn. Torres approached, his voice low. "We've got him, Sarah. The evidence is airtight." I clutched Noah's keychain, my Cuban wife's spirit unbroken. James had underestimated me, but tonight, I'd reclaimed our honor. The echo of handcuffs clicking around James Mitchell's wrists lingered in my mind as I drove home from the Veterans Gala, the Colorado Springs night heavy with the weight of justice. The courtroom was my next battlefield, a sterile chamber 10 miles from Fort Carson, where James faced his reckoning 2 weeks later. I sat in the front row, my hand steady, Noah's toy tank keychain tucked in my pocket like a talisman. James stood in a gray jumpsuit, his marine medals absent, his eyes avoiding mine. Agent Daniel Torres had delivered the flash drive, Rachel Harper's testimony, and my recorded evidence of James's threats painted an airtight case. The judge's gavel fell like a thunderclap, sentencing James to 18 years in federal prison for wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. The gallery, filled with veterans, sat silent, their respect for him replaced by disdain. I exhaled, a knot in my chest unraveling. Eleanor Brooks squeezed my hand, her voice a whisper. "You did it, Sarah. Noah's safe." I nodded, but the victory was bittersweet. James's betrayal had cost us our home, our $1.5 million VA savings, and the man I'd once loved. Yet, I was no longer the broken wife who'd faced Rachel at my door. I was Sarah Mitchell, forged in a Q-Bin's crucible, and I'd rebuild. I sold our old house, its memories tainted, and used the $300,000 to buy a cozy bungalow on the edge of Colorado Springs, with a view of Pikes Peak's rugged silhouette. Noah ran through the backyard, his laughter a melody of healing, as I hung a new American flag on the porch. I founded Valor Families, a nonprofit to support military spouses, in a small office downtown. My first client was a young widow, her husband lost in Afghanistan, struggling to navigate VA benefits. "You're not alone," I told her, my voice steady with purpose. Helping her felt like reclaiming my own strength, each step a defiance of James's destruction. Rachel Harper visited one afternoon, her eyes softer now, free of the venom that once defined her. "I'm moving to Denver," she said, clutching a coffee mug. "I'm starting therapy, trying to heal." I nodded, no words needed. We'd both been scarred, but we'd survived. Noah bounded into the office, waving a paper airplane. "Mom, look. It's a fighter jet." His grin lit up the room, and I knelt to hug him, my heart swelling. "It's perfect, buddy," I said, my voice catching. The bungalow, the nonprofit, Noah's joy, they were my new foundation, built on the ashes of James's lies. I glanced at the flag outside, its stars gleaming under the Colorado sun. The pain of betrayal still lingered, a faint scar, but I was no longer its prisoner. I'd fought like a Marine wife, not just for justice, but for a future where Noah could dream without fear. My war was over, and I'd won. The morning sun bathed my Colorado Springs bungalow, its rays dancing on the American flag fluttering outside. I stood in the doorway of Valor Families, my nonprofit, watching Noah chase a paper airplane across the lawn, his laughter a beacon of hope. I was Sarah Mitchell, 36, no longer defined by James Mitchell's betrayal, his $1.5 million theft of our VA savings, his lies to Rachel Harper, his plan to steal Noah. His 18-year sentence was justice, but my victory was this, a new life, forged from the ashes of pain. I'd faced the abyss, Rachel's lost child, James's threat to flee 1,500 miles to Canada with Noah and Jessica Lane, and emerged stronger, a Cuban wife who refused to break. I turned to the camera, my voice steady, carrying the weight of every battle. This isn't just my story. It's for every military spouse who's felt the sting of betrayal, who's fought for their family against all odds. James thought he could erase me, but I stood tall, like the Pikes Peak skyline behind me. "You can too." I paused, Noah's giggle echoing. "Here's what I learned, trust your strength, even when your world crumbles. Protect what matters, your kids, your honor, with every fiber of your being. And never let a lie define you. Build something new, like I did with Valor Families, helping spouses 10 miles from Fort Carson find their way." I smiled, my heart full. What's your story? Have you faced betrayal and risen stronger? Share it in the comments. Let's honor the warriors we are. Noah ran to me, waving his airplane. "Mom, we're heroes, right?" I knelt, hugging him tight. "Always, buddy." Subscribe for more stories of courage, and let's keep fighting together.